The news from far away, where people were dying in the Boer War, was not so cheering. Disturbing stories began to leak out that Britain had set up what were being called concentration camps. The British commander was Lord Kitchener. At the start of the year, he had tried to negotiate some form of peace, but it came to nothing. And now he decided on what we might call a scorched earth policy. Simply destroy everything that made it possible for the civilians to live. Crops, homes, everything. What happened next should have been predicted. Thousands and thousands of people were made refugees. The British put them into concentration camps. The result was almost uncontainable disease. An enormous number died. But in any case, the camps didn't bring the fighting Boers to their knees. The war wouldn't end until the late spring of the following year, 1902. The British at home didn't give much thought to it. They mostly believed the Boer War to be a just cause because the Boers had started it. As simple as that. Few knew its origins, few questioned the official line. It wasn't that sort of society, nor would it be for decades to come. True, this was a changing society, but not radically so. A new set of statistics showed what Britain did for a living in 1901. 10 years later, about the same number of people were doing the same sort of things.
There are 229,000 coachmen, grooms, cabmen, and drivers of the omnibus service. 163,000 work on the seas, the rivers, and canals. We have 221,000 messengers, porters, and watchmen. 2,300,000 work on the land, many fewer than 10 years before. But there are more shepherds, 40,651. In houses modest and great, there are nearly 2 million indoor domestics, 127,000 charwomen, 236,000 washerwomen, ironers, and manglers. Their employers include 52,000 clergymen, 27,000 lawyers, 28,000 physicians and surgeons, and 276,000 schoolmasters, professors, and lecturers.
One group of people was expanding. In 1901, there were, on the roads of these islands, just 703 drivers. That includes cab and van drivers. In 10 years' time, there would be more than 48,000. Britain was, by and large, a peaceful nation. At home, anyway. We were law-abiding. There was even a drop in the crime rate. This might seem surprising considering the industrial changes in society and the migration of much of the rural population to the towns. 20% of the whole population lived in London, and industrial conurbations were growing in England at a faster rate than anywhere in the world. Whoever the British thank for this prosperity, it most certainly wasn't God. At least, there's no sign that they went to church very often. In London, for example, only 1 in 5 ever went. Most of the regular churchgoers tended to be the smarter people. It used to be said that the Church of England was the Conservative Party at prayer. Britain was an increasingly class-conscious and class-driven society. More and more people wanted to get into the next higher class, and more people were capable of achieving it. This had an effect on the country that was to last the rest of the century. The people who were, for the first time, making pots of money out of the new industrial society, the so-called new rich, wanted to get into the establishment as soon as possible. And in order to achieve that, their obsession with class meant that these newly rich industrialists, who'd made their money on the shop floors, sent their sons not onto the shop floor themselves, but into the public schools, with the effect that the young men who would one day inherit Britain's big industrial companies and run its big institutions received almost exclusively classical educations. This didn't happen elsewhere. The heirs to Germany's industrial future, for example, were taught science and technology. The effects of this social phenomenon were to last until the end of the century. Nevertheless, the old order was not static. Britain's empire covered 1/3 of the globe. The empire was coming of age, and was beginning to express its own interests, which were not always Britain's. It was a signal received only faintly in Whitehall. One signal that did not go ignored travelled from Cornwall to the United States in December 1901.